If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening to another live stream episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. Really appreciate you listening. Before I bring on tonight's guest, I want to put something out there for you. Just because you hear a guest come on the show and share opinions about dogmen, maybe they're a researcher, for example, their opinions aren't necessarily the opinions of the show, of me, in other words. I like to have an open platform for guests to come on, and especially if they're a researcher and they want to put out opinions about dogmen, they've got all the right to do that. But yeah, please don't take them to task because they say something about dogmen that you don't agree with. I mean, we all have our opinions about things, and that's only fair. But enough on that. Let's move forward to tonight's show. Tonight's guest is Harlan. Harlan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Vic. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing better than I deserve. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Can't complain.
Well, as long as you can say that, that's a great thing. It definitely is. Harlan, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Oh, let's see here. I am 56. I live in Houston, Texas, in a remodeled train depot. I am artistic, and I'm working on a collection right now called Disaster Pieces. I am a displaced custom picture framer, and looking for a new, new career. But other than that, I just kind of go along with life, and try to enjoy my days. So,
well, yeah, that's all you can do. It really is. And if you're living in a remodeled train depot, I'm sure not all remodeled train depots have, I guess, inhabitants, quote unquote, inhabitants that come along with them. But of all the places you could live, I think that's probably a lot more likely to have ghosts that come with it than other places. Is that the case with yours?
there's something here. I mean, I always hear like bangs, weird like things in the kitchen. And there's no reason for it. And I've had several friends that show up and they're like, there's somebody here, there's somebody here. I'm like, somebody here. So I think there's something here. Allegedly, there was an unaliving in like 1935 of a young woman around my little area. So I don't know. Well, who knows? Who knows? That's the story though. Mafia involved.
Well, it'd be one thing if that was the only experience you had along those lines, but yeah, unfortunately, that's not the case. From what I understand, some time ago, you woke up to a very nasty surprise at the foot of your bed. Please talk us through that. That's intense. Wow.
So yeah, that was New Orleans. That would have been 2017. I was laying there in my bed and noticed a tall, very like 7 foot tall thing just kind of standing at the end of my bed, back to me, looking at the TV, had the TV on, and I could see it shift, underneath its brown cloak, kind of looked like the Grim Reaper or something like that because it had a hood. It's like, what am I looking at? So I sat there for a minute. I'm like, this is not right. I had a friend there, with me too, and I was like, nope. So I stepped out, unbeknownst to him, and to go smoke a cigarette. Came back, and he was like, oh, you went out that way. He was like, oh, I thought you went down this way, down the hall, because I kept hearing noises down there. I was like, you hear noises down there? He's like, yeah. He's like, by the way, I saw your ghost. I was like, oh, really? Not the one he was talking about, though. I was like, explain it. He's like, I'm about 7 foot tall, wearing a brown cloak and hoodie. And he's like, I saw its face. He's like, you don't want to see its face. I'm like, oh, that's not my ghost, though. I don't know what that was. Because there was I lived in a house with it was like 3 basically houses in a horseshoe shape. And there was a great room. And in the great room, the ex-owner's husband, dead husband, liked to, prowl around and into the kitchen to scare the hell out of me when I was in the bathroom. Oops, sorry. Yeah, it was a very interesting time, and I was very happy to get out of that house. Very happy. Not fun.
Yeah, I can understand why.
Yeah.
Let me guess, you never slept since then with the lights off.
Oh no, nah. It didn't scare me that much. But I just, I keep, so as soon as I got out of New Orleans, I was just happy. Except then, it happened in when I moved to Vegas. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things. I don't know if like magnetically, if they're like pulled to you. But yeah, what can you do?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, New Orleans, that is a strange place. A lot of freaky things go on there. I don't know what it is about that place, but a lot of paranormal things happen. So, yeah, it's far from being a situation where it's just you. What other kind of paranormal experiences have you had? I know you've had your fair share of them.
Well, let's see here. When I grew up in Colorado, northern Colorado, the lovely Fort Collins area, and I moved back in 2002, and then I got into social work, and then I was given a person. I was working for an agency that we took care of developmentally disabled adults, and so I was, given a ward to, take care of, and he lived with me. He was high needs because of his behaviors. He was elderly, so he was 24/7, supervision. Couldn't be on my side or whatever. But the only time that I really had to myself was at night. And so at night, it's like it was beautiful. It was picturesque. I was like right on the edge of Fort Collins, like to the west of me was fields and tree line, and they got a Horsetooth Reservoir. It was beautiful. So at night, I'd be outside all the time, especially during the summer. Just get some respite for me away from him. And so then I just started paying attention. I always pay attention to the sky. Always have, always will. Started noticing, the UFOs are prevalent in that area. That's all I have to say. It's a hotbed, and yeah, it was that was crazy. But then that aside, I mean that's a whole other story. I started noticing. This is in 2004. To the west of me, down in the tree line, it was a tall, 100-foot tall trees. It was gorgeous. In the wintertime, I noticed this little orange light, like just in the trees. I thought it was somebody with like a flashlight. I've never seen an orange flashlight. So I was like, well, maybe somebody's coon hunting. But then again, I never saw anybody coon hunting in Colorado either. So I don't know why I thought that. But so I just sort of like, put it back in my mind. Then one night, there was a little place, a little road that I would go to where I could open up my sunroof and there's no light pollution, and I could just like lean back and check out the Milky Way. So I'm sitting there one night, and it was a windy road coming down a hill, and there's two houses, and at the top of the hill, I noticed a little blue light. And I'm like, okay, must be your nighttime cyclist. It's Colorado. People are, healthy out there. And then I was like, I kept paying attention. I was like, there's no head attached to that light. I was like, what is that? It's just kind of floating there. So I got out of my car, walked towards it, started backing away from me. Okay, now what is that? Now I was really intrigued. And it's this phenomenon they call the Goat Hill ghost lights. And apparently they've been recorded since the late 1890s. There's a LaPorte Gazette or something like that. It's this really small town, but they started publishing articles on it. And I was told about this by a friend. I actually tried to do some research on it and couldn't find anything, which didn't surprise me. But once you see one, then you see all, and it just didn't stop. They're fascinating, absolutely fascinating. They were my opinion is they're like these little plasma-based sentient conscious balls of light. I mean, it's the only way that I could describe it. I had hundreds of them, and it got to the point where it's like I'd go to this field, the slope on the field, just right to the west of my house, and lay there. It was summertime, very few bugs, and just lay in the grass and look up at the stars. And it's like they noticed me, I noticed them, or they noticed me noticing them, pretty much. And then they would come a little closer. There was orange. I think the average one was about tennis ball sized, orange, and they kind of like did this little like wobble, this weird little wobble when they're in the sky, just sitting there. But they kind of like bounce along the ground, kind of like look like they're foraging, but I wouldn't know what for. Just very slow and just kind of meandering. But it got to the point where they became used to me or very docile or something. I would go for a bike ride down this road that I lived on. It was exactly a mile from my house to the end of the road. You got CSU forestry down there, which comes into the play later in the story here. And so it's like I could mark my miles, by however many times I go back and forth. And so I'm literally stopped at the corner across the street from my house, and there's two little lights in the field. One of them was lavender color, and one was blue, little like 1 inch. And I'm like 20 feet away from them, and they're just going about their business. And I'm like, well, this is really cool. And I was chased out of the field by one that was the size of a basketball. It was a very, very interesting time in my life, shall we say that. I was solitary just because of my job and the requirements. And these things kind of became like my surrogate friends. I don't know. It was just the most bizarre thing ever. I actually miss them. I want to go back and I want to check it out. But they're absolutely fascinating. And I've heard other people with the same stories and of these things, and they're out there. And I don't know what to think of them, but I'm happy they're out there because they, kept me from going insane, through that 6 years of, being, isolated with, the person I took care of because of his behaviors. So, yeah, that's fun.
Wow.
Yeah, but they're really, really cool.
Never a dull moment. I'm sure it's not lost on you. It's not going to be news to you when I tell you that these things, paranormal things, just seem to be drawn to certain people. And guess what? I'd say you're definitely in that group of people.
You think so?
Yeah, I'd say you're a magnet for all this sort of thing. You really are. Now, we've talked a little bit here about your paranormal experiences, but let's get down to brass tacks now. Please tell us about your dogman encounters. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right. So it was during the same period. This is going to be 2007 to 2008 when I ran into this thing. So, like I said, there was this road, just way to the west of my house. At night, I would, go down there and just get a little, respite for myself. And there was a creek. There's a tree line, a creek, and then this little bridge that I would sit on, and just kind of, sit there, look at the creek, stars, whatever. So one night, I'm sitting there and I hear the faint tick, 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 tick of nails, coming up the street from the west. And I'm like, okay, it's on four legs, so it's got to be a dog, and it got closer and closer. And then here it comes. And I'm sitting on the bridge and I'm like, that's what? I'm looking at the biggest dog I've ever seen. It was tall. It wasn't like body big. I mean, it was built kind of like, I would have to say like a Great Dane or Greyhound. It looked toned, but it was like 4.5 foot tall, I think, probably at the shoulder. I mean, I was sitting there and it was like on this, little bridge, and it was almost eye level to me, about 4.5 foot tall. And I'm like, what am I looking at? So it comes up, click, 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 and it stops. And it's 5 foot away from me. And I'm like, I don't know what, I'm just like flabbergasted. And so it turns and looks at me and just, sits there for a few seconds. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So I'm like, skit, And so it just, turns its head and then saunters on down the road to the corner, makes a left and just walks off. I mean, no big deal. I mean, who's just out for a stroll? And so that was the first time. Second time, it was pretty much the same scenario. I'm sitting in the same place, and here I hear the click, 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 and I'm like, oh God, no, I don't want to see that thing. I was like, I don't know what it is. I mean, there's gonna be nobody down there with a dog that big because there's not a dog that big. I mean, that tall. I've never seen a dog that tall at the shoulder. So I'm sitting there, here it comes. And it's okay. So, description would be, like I said, like a greyhound or a Great Dane, thin, very short hair. I mean, it's not shaggy, not no mane, no nothing. Very short hair all over. I could tell it was like a dark gray. I could tell that much because of the moonlight. So saunters up, just I mean, it's just meander. It's just no care in the world. Just does the same thing. Just kind of stops, looks over at me, and I didn't do anything this time. I just kind of sat there. I was quiet, and then just looked back, and then just went about his business. Sauntered down the road, made the right, and then went down right down the road. And I'm like, what is that thing? I mean, I wasn't threatened by it or anything like that. It was just shocking, just because of the sheer height, and that's what I was like not too fond of. So fast forward, so those two incidences happened about 6 months between each other, and then probably about, I don't know, a year or so. I'm again down the road, because I mean that's what my thing was, that time, to find some personal time. So I'm down. Okay, so like I said, CSU Forestry has a research center down there, and they have this fence around the property that I started to question, because it's overkill, absolute overkill. I mean, I was looking at it one night. And this is the night in question. So I'm looking at the fence, and I'm like, "What is this?" I mean, it's like 12 foot tall. It's like 3 layers of reinforced, like wire. I mean, like you really have to have like a pretty heavy duty bolt cutter just to like snap through it. Then on top, I think it even has like an angle, like an angled part, like trying to keep people in or people out or whatever they're trying to keep in or out. But I'm sitting there like checking this fence out, and then something catches my eye, and I look down, ground level, and okay. So then, hold on. The only light in the area was from an abandoned airstrip that was behind me. There was a building, and they had one fluorescent light on it, and so that's the only light. So I'm looking in this field about 25 feet in, past the fence, and I see 2 sets of eyes looking back at me. And it was strange because, it's like you hear a Dogman and the amber glow, and it's like, I didn't even hear a Dogman. I mean, I didn't know about Dogman until like 10 years later after this. There was no amber glow. And the weird thing was, like, it was the entirety of the eye, the whites, everything was reflecting a light aqua blue color, and they're both. And it's like, I'm sitting there, I'm like looking at these four. Okay, so I'm looking at these 4 like aqua blue lights, eye shaped, 25 feet away from me, and then they start blinking, and I'm like, oh, come on now, and I could tell it was like kind of dog like, I don't know. They were definitely laying down, but their heads were kind of tilting, like a dog would. You can kind of look at it, looking over at me and blinking. And I mean, nothing got up, like chased after me or whatever. But it was still like enough of a shock. I mean, the eyes were about 8 inches apart. So I'm like, thinking about, I'm like putting all of it together, and I'm like, oh, well, perhaps this is what I have been seeing, coming down the street. I was like, that would make sense. And why? And I'm like, is this fence here because of them? I mean, what's going on? What are they doing, CSU? What are you doing? So I went home. I was like, I'm not even gonna, try to figure this out tonight. And then the last time I saw it, it was the same encounter, except this time, as far as like me sitting on the little bridge, same thing happened. Click, 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 click. Here he comes. But this time there was a police officer sitting, probably a cop car with 2 police officers, and they were sitting about 70, 80 feet away from me, like on the other side of the street. So they were pointing west. and because the dog was walking to the east, and did the same thing. Just kind of like walked up, stopped, looked over at me. I was like, okay, we've been through this before, and then started walking off. But the funny thing was the reaction that I was watching, the faces on these two police officers. It was priceless. I mean, I just started laughing. I mean, internally, you don't want to see cops. You don't want to see cops, laughing at them, but they didn't know what to do. The thing was as tall as the car, and they're looking at it, and I could tell they're like their mouths were open. They were just like what, and it just, like I said, sauntered off, turned right, and obviously it had something to do down a rolling trail. It had something to do down there that was very important because obviously that's where I like to go. So I don't know if it dug out from underneath this fence because that's obviously where its little home was, but it was so interesting. And it's like I kind of stored those memories, back in my mind. And then I started listening to you probably about 2 years ago or something like that. And here come those memories as far as like, well, wait a minute. I mean, but it makes no sense because it's nothing like I've been listening to, and I was like, so what did I see? And I'm still questioning it. It's I don't know. It's just unlike anything. So, but I'm, it's one of those things where I'm happy that I had the experience. It was non-threatening. I mean, it was comical because I mean, it was so laid back. It didn't growl. It didn't do anything. Just kind of looked over. Oh, hi, and then sauntered off. So I'm very happy that I know that things like that are out there, and more than that, I mean, when I was 16. I saw Bigfoot crawling over a guardrail on Carter Lake, so I knew things were out there at a young age, and yes, folks, it's real.
Yeah, you did get an early start. You really did. I should have asked you this when we had our first conversation, but for whatever reason, I didn't. Before you had that first Dogman encounter in 2007, you
Mhm.
obviously already had multiple paranormal experiences, but did you believe in the existence of cryptids like dogmen, or had you not heard about dogmen before that?
Well, I had never heard about Dogman. I heard about Dogman from another channel, um, and he's based in New Orleans, and I was living in New Orleans at the time, and that's where I became fascinated, absolutely fascinated. I couldn't get enough, about Dogman. But as far as when I was a kid, I was absolutely fascinated with Bigfoot. First time I remember the first show that I had watched on, it was more of like a docu drama kind of thing, where you'd be like sneaking up to an old woman, doing her dishes, peeking in the window, that kind of thing. And it's just, absolutely, I would have dreams about it. It was just crazy. And inside, I always believed that, I think the possibility, of, things like that existing, I, gave it at least, that much credit. But when it became obvious to me that there was something there, but I couldn't put my finger on what I had seen when I was 16 at Carter Lake until just a few years ago. So what happened was my friend Shelly B and I had a big blue Camaro at the time, and it was fun to drive, and so I picked her up. It was like 12 o'clock or something, and so we went cruising, into the foothills, and Carter Lake is above Loveland, Colorado, and it's got two dams, and if anybody can know what a dam looks like, you got water on one side and you got the retaining wall on the other. And it's like you're talking the retaining wall is going to be like giant boulders and the earth and stuff like that, and 70-degree angle. Not very friendly for foot traffic, for humans or anything really. You'd really have to want to get up that embankment to to move on. So we're crossing the second dam, and about 70 feet away from the end of the guardrail. So the water is on the left of, or on the right of us. The embankment is on the left, and there's the guardrail. And so about 50 feet before we passed the end of the guardrail, something comes over the guardrail. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is a sheepdog doing up here at this time of night? Because it was the size of a sheepdog. And if anybody doesn't know what a sheepdog is, it is a big dog that is hairy. It's a Shaggy DA, okay? That's a sheepdog. It's got long white and gray hair. And I'm, so it's like, it's coming over the guardrail. And it's just a sheepdog. And then I don't know if we saw something that, that I'm not remembering, but also it's like, I'm looking over at Shelly. She's looking at me. And we're both like, just kind of like face forward. And we don't talk for the rest of the ride until I drop her off. And so this, and like I said, it's like, sometimes you take a memory, just put it in the back of your head, and, if it needs to come up later, it will. So this is only a couple of years ago. It popped up, and I was like, wait a minute. There was no sheepdog. I mean, I was like, what was I thinking? So I started I started thinking about the incident, and it was an arm. It was an arm that reached over, it grabbed underneath the guardrail, and it was pulling itself up and over the guardrail, and it was gigantic. I mean, like I said, a sheepdog's like 5 foot long or something like that, but frightening. I mean, just the sheer size of this thing. After I started thinking about it, I was like, that was, I'm so happy that we were passing it when we did, because if we were just 20 seconds behind, I mean, it would have been completely different. Who knows? I mean, with the arm like that size, I mean, it could have just, squished us just with its arms. Plop. We're in a Camaro, there's nothing there. So that kind of set things, in my head, that I guess there's, something out there. But like I said, I didn't really put two and two together until years later. But I always knew. I always wanted, there to be, something else besides, what we know. It's a big world, and it's a very strange world. And, to have cryptids, in here with us, I think it just adds a little color. It just makes it more of a motley crew. But
adds a little color. I'd say it does add some color to life in general. You've had an exciting life. It really makes you wonder, though, what's next? I mean, after having all these experiences, you're only 56. You've got a lot of years ahead of you. Who knows? You might have another Sasquatch experience, might check off another box on Dogman encounters as well. And as far as the paranormal goes, that's a throw up. Who knows what's next on that, in that category?
That's the truth. I have no idea. It's like Houston is in very close proximity to Sam Houston National Forest, which is notorious for having Bigfoot encounters. But these are not the nice Bigfoot. These are the ones that are going to tear up your camp, and you're not going to be seen ever again. And this has happened. I mean, there was a really bad incident a few years ago where this camp was destroyed and people were never seen. So it's because I've thought, well, maybe I want to go exploring and, see what I can see. And I have decided against that after listening to your show. It's like, so, I've been a cyclist all my life, and at night, it's the best time to go in Houston because you're not dealing with obviously the sun and the heat of the day. So, I'll take off for, an hour, 2, 3, 4, 5 at a time, just depending on how much I want to stay out there. And I get into some really desolate areas. I mean, it's like Houston's a big city, but we still have a lot of greenway, and a lot of places are just completely dark, and there's just nobody around for quite a while. And if you're just out on a trail, like a bike trail or something, so it's like, I mean, I've been in situations where thinking about it now, I'm like, what was I thinking? 2 o'clock in the morning, here I'm like, just sitting and, checking out the stars, on some deserted, bike trail. And it's like, what could have walked up on me? And that's what my thoughts are now. What could walk up on me? So it's like I've actually been more vigilant as far as paying attention to, what could be out there. Just a little bit of humor. So I do want to go to the dollar store and get like a big yellow piece of paper, big marker, and I want to put up a Dogman crossing sign on the bike trail, just because I think people should know that it's possibly there. I mean, it's it was just the perfect area. It's the perfect habitat for them. You've got the bayou, you've got just plenty of space around the bayou. So I don't know, but as far as like the UFOs, those are commonplace. If you know what to look for, you can find them. And I'm not talking aliens or anything like that. I'm just saying lights that just what is that? Seriously, come on, people, But I don't know. As far as far as like ghosts and stuff, ghosts don't bother me. But when it's a 7 foot tall relative of the Grim Reaper standing at the end of your bed, I'm going to move on from that, and I'm not going to send them a postcard letting them know where I went. So, yeah, that's about it, Vic.
I can't say I blame you for not wanting to revisit that at all.
Mm-mm.
I don't blame you. You've had 4 opportunities, Harlan, to watch that Dogman move.
Mhm.
With that in mind, did you ever notice any jerky movements, or was it smooth in how it moved?
It was smooth. It walked kind of strange, and that's what I noticed when it was coming up the road. It was like its front legs were a little bit longer than its back legs or something. It was just odd. It was bizarre. But yeah, but it was smooth. I mean, it was it's the size of a pony, and kind of like walked like one. I mean, it was very graceful. I mean, as far as it didn't like stumble or it wasn't jerky or anything. It was just very very smooth. I wouldn't mind seeing one of those. I'd like to see it again, just to like get a better observation of it. But I mean, I want to get back to that area because it was 5 years of wow, every day. And then my friend Eric, he'd be with me, and we'd be checking. I mean, we'd be seeing all of this stuff, and it became so commonplace, to us that we'd see like one of the lights, like coming down the road and like up into a tree and then disappearing, and we'd be like, hey, yeah, it's just one of those things again, and it was I miss it, to tell you the truth. I really miss that because it added an air of like there was a mystery behind it, and then like I said, it became kind of like a surrogate, not family, but friends or something like that, on a very strange level. Like 4th of July, I saw one bouncing down the street daytime. It was a little white one just bouncing down the street with so the tail on this thing, it was electric. I mean, it's a foot off the ground. It's bouncing, but it's bouncing on air. It's like the end of the tail is just like it's like sparking or something. It's like about a foot long. It's just like a little like bouncing light lizard. I don't know, but interesting. I would like to go back and check that out again, though. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up. That building you told us, that facility that you told us about, though,
Mm-hmm.
there are more things I want to ask you about that, such as how would you describe that building? Now, listening to you talk about it, it sounds like it's got a fence all the way around it, but does it look like just some unassuming warehouse or a government facility? How would you describe it?
Let me go into that. Okay, so if you're heading west down this road, the first thing on the right that you're going to run into, and it's about a half mile down the road, is going to be that abandoned airstrip. And there's one building there that's abandoned. It's an old metal, hangar, and it's got one fluorescent light, round ones, like up in the top gable. Then the fence starts right about in there, a little bit to the east of it. And then if you follow the fence down, there is actually a research building that is, I'd say, another quarter mile away down the street from that, which is, it's a large building. It's the size of a college campus building, because it's just, that's where their research center is. But so they grow trees back there or something, for forestry. And so then there's that building, and then at the end of that road, it dead ends into the one of the dams for Horsetooth Reservoir, and then there's the water filtration plant down there too on the right hand side. But yeah, it's a really ugly building that CSU has down there. It's very not pretty, but it's an interesting area. I've seen other things, but I won't go into those.
Oh, no, I understand. That might be the best policy there. Now, this might be a silly question or sound like a silly question, but do you remember which way the barbed wire on the top of that fence around that facility points? Does it point inwards or outwards? In other words, just to try to keep things in the facility or to try to keep people out of the facility?
The top of it, I don't believe it was barbed wire. Okay, so it's 12 foot tall, and I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, and I completely forgot. I was gonna just Google the image, but I believed that it was facing inward. So it was more of the same reinforced rebar or whatever, and I believe it was facing inward. So. But there again, I mean, it's like this is 2007. My recollection could be, completely wrong. And that's why I wanted to at least get some clarification on it and Google it, and I forgot. But it was just such overkill to protect trees. I mean, I don't know of anybody who's going to go in and dig up a full-size pine and walk off with it. Bizarre. I just thought it was bizarre. So I don't know I don't know what's going on down there, but to each their own, I guess.
Sounds like everything about that facility is bizarre. And for anyone listening who doesn't know, if you have barbed wire at the top of a fence and it's pointing inward, well, that's to keep things in. If it's pointing out, then obviously it's designed to keep people and other things out, whatever that might be. So that's not to say, it's got barbed wire on the top of that fence there at that facility, so they must have dogmen shoulder to shoulder inside. No, we can't jump to that crazy conclusion. Maybe they do have quite a few dogmen in there, but I mean, that's just a leap. We don't know what's going on in that place. But if it's a 12-foot fence, even for a government facility, that is unusual, very unusual. Is it normal? Did you say it's normal chain link fence, or is it no climb?
Oh, no. I mean, it's 3 layers of reinforced rebar fencing. It's not chain link. It's where each of the links is welded together. So it's very very reinforced, and that's why I was standing there looking at it what is this? I was fascinated. It's like, what is this face for? And then it was saw the dogs or whatever they were, and then left it at that.
Yeah, I understand. Now, I'm never going to say that a 12-foot fence, even with barbed wire on the top, is going to stop a dogman that wants to get out, because they can jump right over that. Of course they can. I'm seeing some comments in the live chat reflecting that. Well, of course they can jump over a 12-foot fence. Those guys, they can jump like it's going out of style. But we don't know what else they might have in that facility. It's really hard to say. So it does make you wonder what's going on in there. Now, it could very easily be a facility where there's nothing extraordinary going on. I mean, that's probably what's going on. It's probably a case where there's nothing extraordinary at all about that facility. But when you see what you just told us about, it does make you wonder. It really does. But having said all that there, Harlan, how sure are you that it was the same dogman that you saw each of the 4 times?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, I think it was even the same, the same animal. I mean, just because of how it, behaved, each time. It was it was a little personality, I guess, as far as just stop, look over, and then look away and then walk off. And the way it sauntered, was the same. Very casual, very casual little beast. But yeah, it was definitely the same one. It's like short hair, looking like a greyhound. In face, even the head and the face was, like I said, kind of Great Danish Greyhoundish. But non-threatening, which was good.
Yeah, I'd say he was casual. Just taking in the sights, it sounds like, which that beats the pants off of him trying to terrify you. And also another thing I should touch on, I saw some comments in the live chat where people are saying, okay, yeah, it's just a dog that he saw sauntering up the road. Well, he also told us that his best guess for a size would be that this thing was right around 54 inches at the shoulders, at the withers. Even the biggest giant breed dog doesn't come anywhere close to being 54 inches at the shoulders. Nowhere close. I mean, most giant breeds at the tallest come in around 30, 32 inches at the shoulders, at the withers. Some get a little taller than that, but they don't touch 54, like I said. So if you're trying to explain this away as just being a big dog that's going for a walk, well, try again, because that's definitely not it. Now, do you think the Dogman was a paranormal entity, Harlan, and that explains why you saw it 4 times in 4 different places? Or do you think there's another explanation for that?
Oh no, it was as real as anything. I mean, I could hear the click, click, click. He definitely needed a nail trim, but no, it was real. It was as real as I am, I guess. But yeah, that thing was tall. I mean, like I said, I was sitting there, and it was eye to eye, pretty much. And then like when it was walking to the right hand side of that police car, it was as tall as the car, and it was just so bizarre, But like I said, it's just there's no similarity, with these other beasts that have been described, so I'm not sure if it's like variation or whatever it was, but it was real and it was tall and it was just very casual. So happy about that.
I'm sure
I wish it luck.
Huh. Well, yeah, that's awfully kind of you. Most eyewitnesses, they don't have any good feelings like that towards the dogmen they see. So as long as you have those feelings, that means your encounters haven't been bad at all, which is always a good thing. It really is. Now, you said that you don't think it's a paranormal being, but that doesn't mean that it's not connected somehow. Your experiences with the dogman there aren't connected to the paranormal experiences you've had. Do you think they're totally separate, or do you think there's a connection somehow?
I don't know. So that thing I saw in New Orleans, I think it was because it was nighttime, so I had like my little French doors open in the front and then my back door open to get a breeze through. So I think it was probably just like cruising by and like, hey, there's an open door. I'm gonna go in and see what's going on, and just kind of like whizzed in and like checked it out. But I don't know. I mean, I also read New Orleans. I did meet somebody who was possessed by several things, but I don't know if I don't. And it's a great question. I mean, I don't think they're related, but I mean, why have I seen these things? Are they drawn to me or whatever? I don't know. I haven't really figured that out yet. I think it's more of like time and place, or I don't believe in coincidences, but I your guess is as good as mine. No idea. But I'm happy that I have seen some of the things that I have, although it has maybe somewhat unrelatable to other people, because my experience have they've been intense and long lasting. I mean, I was seeing those orbs in Colorado. I guess like people also describe them as orbs, but some orbs are like more transparent that you see in photography, and these were semi-transparent, but completely different than those that they talk about. But it's like, I mean, that experience lasted for 5 years, of, seeing these things, regularly. And I mean, it's like, one night, I went down to the slope where I, lay down in the grass and check out the sky. Here goes, UFO above me. And then I look at my house, and then there's, like this little orange, ghost light or whatever, like, by my bedroom window. There's one down by the porch. Then I turn around and there's a big one that's like, in this Y of this dead tree, a basketball sized thing, and I walk towards it, and it floats up, away from the tree and up above my neighbor's trees across the street, which were like 80 feet tall. And then it cruises across the street and stops above my neighbor's house. So I walk over to my patio, and I'm just standing there looking at this thing. I'm like, what are you? And it's just sitting there. I mean, it's like, I'm not getting any like, weird, like mind speak or anything like that from it, which I do believe in. But nothing. I'm not getting anything from it, other than, hi, we're here. We're here, and obviously we're not threatening you. And it was very benign, very benign. But I'm like I said, I've become slightly unrelatable because these things change you. They put a different perspective, on how you look at things and what you can expect, and what, because you should expect anything really, and I do.
Oh yeah, I'll bet you do.
I
After
don't know
all
what's
those
around the,
experiences.
yeah.
And you also said just a moment ago, and I believe you when you said it, you said that after having all those experiences, it became normal for you. And like I said, I do believe you. After having all those experiences, it probably did become normal, but I can't even wrap my head around how it would be to actually have that be normal, to have these kinds of experiences. Again, I believe you and I understand it, but I just can't wrap my mind around all of that. But considering as many experiences as you've had, have you ever had any near-death experiences?
No, I have not. Um, my should I go into this? My mom was fairly psychic when I was a kid. She didn't know what was going on. She would predict death when she was dreaming. That was the closest thing, I guess, to like, she's always the only one she would confide in it, and it was freaky. She hated it, but she'd always dream of like a funeral or something like that. And within a month, we could expect like somebody to drop off, and it always happened. She visited her best friend's funeral like astrally one night, and my mom's friend's son called to let her know that she had passed, and my mom sat there and described the funeral to him, and like flowers and everything, layout. She's like, I was there. He's like, how is this possible? She's like, I don't know. She's like, I don't know how this happens. It just does, So it was a curse on her. Nobody would want that. Nobody. So but as far as, no, I haven't had any. I mean, I don't know. So it's like I did have like a car accident when we were in 1979, where we were almost all taken out. We were going to an amusement park and got broadsided by somebody at 106 miles an hour or something, kind of like T-boned, and yeah, I don't know if that's like, because it was scary, and we all got bumped around, but I don't know if that has anything to do with it, because I don't know. There's a lot of things that I question as far as like, how does this fit into anything? But no, as far as the normalization of these things, it was kind of, it's like my own like little secret almost. I don't know. I still can't wrap my head around some of it. It's like with the UFOs. I mean, once you see one, you just can't stop seeing them. I mean, especially if you know what you're looking for. And it's like, it was absolutely insane. I mean, I thought that, I was like, am I seeing this? Am I really seeing this? So I'd take photographs, and yes, there it is, there is. So Yeah, it's very, it can be very confusing if I try to think about it too much, and I try not to because I don't like to confuse myself. You know, I've got
Huh.
plenty of other things in my life that do. So otherwise I just move on from it. But I do miss the those little or ghost lights or whatever they are. Because like I said, they did become very like docile and would not just like just fly off. Um, so I don't know. I've thought I've seen that like in Phoenix when I lived in Phoenix. There was a friend that I had that lived on a tree line, and I was like standing on their patio one night, just looking, and I could swear that I saw like one of those like orange orbs or whatever. And so I went and I like asked him. I was like, "Have you seen anything like that?" He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Yeah, we've got those out here." Oh, that's pretty cool because I used to see those in Colorado. And so that was nice to kind of reassure myself that okay, you're not completely insane. you know so yeah, I wish I hope other people can find some some things like that to on a regular basis. They'll just go to Colorado. There's
Huh.
all sorts of stuff up there.
Yeah, I'd say there is. So that you might already know this, but if you have a near death experience, it does seem to open you up to things. It thins the veil for you, seems like, where you're more prone to see ghosts and have paranormal experiences, and it seems to predispose you to having dogman encounters and also Sasquatch encounters too. I'm not sure if you knew that, but if you didn't, that definitely seems to be a pattern.
It would make sense. Like after like the car accident was brutal. And so when the paramedics showed up to, pull all of us, all six of us out of this mangled, piece of metal, they line people up like head to toe to head, like on the pavement, and then they start like, with the scissors and, taking everything off. I guess I was like laying next to my mom, and she confided this in me years later, but I'm laying there, I was like, "Mom, we're gonna die," and she's like, "Why would we?" And she was messed. We were all messed up, So it's possible that it was more to it than I know, but it was intense, and it took years to heal from those injuries. So perhaps there was more to the extent that I don't know, how it could have affected me with such subjects, So that's how that's the only thing I can think of.
Well, it might be playing a part somehow, some
Hmm.
way. It's hard to say. There's so many things about how this crazy world works that we're never going to understand. So maybe that is connected. It just might be. And while we're on this theme, have you ever played with any Ouija boards?
No.
Good.
uh, no, I knew at a young age that was just not a good thing, So no. Mm-mm.
That's really good. So many people play with these things that know better. It's one thing if you don't know better and do it, but so many people know better and they play with them still. Just don't understand that. I really don't.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Just bad. That's a bad decision.
Yeah, it really doesn't make any sense. Well, let's get to some questions from the live chat now. If you have a question you want me to ask Harlan, please type it in all caps. I've got one for you from Unreal Estate Agent 770. He wants to know, even when taking strides, did it seem to glide as if on air?
Yeah, it definitely. It was very graceful, very graceful. It glided. Yeah, but it wasn't like it was walking on air, but it was. It just almost like a high stepping pony or something. It was graceful, definitely.
With long legs like that, I
Yeah,
bet it was graceful. It looks like Charles Dugo wants to know, does Harlan remember the name of the road?
I do. I'm not sure if I want to say it, just because it's such it's one of the most like it's. I don't want to get anybody because it's like I used to like live on the corner right there, and I don't want anybody to bother anybody around there, pretty much. Um, but yes, I do. I do remember the names of the roads. But I have probably given enough like info where you could, definitely find it out if you know. But I don't want to, endanger anybody by sharing the names. If that makes
Oh,
any sense.
sure.
Okay.
That does make good sense. I
Okay.
understand. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
It looks like Lumen 101 wants to know Harlan, did it look beautiful, painting worthy? And then he
Um.
wants to know 1 to 10 on a scale.
Well, it wasn't ugly. I mean, it was like I said, it was very pretty, um, very athletic. Looking thin, um, tall dog. I mean, yeah. I mean, it definitely. I mean, in the painting, I mean, it would. Yeah. I mean, they used to paint greyhounds all the time. And then French paintings, but yeah. I'd say yes. It could definitely have some artistic viability.
No, I get it. Sounds like it did. It
Hmm.
looks like Unreal Estate Agent wants to know, I guess this is just for clarity on his question. He
Hmm.
wants to know if it was gliding like it was on ice or in a different way.
No, it was very graceful with how it walked. Like like some, even like with horses, you've got quarter horses that they have a different walk than say like an Arabian or I can't remember the name of those dancing horses, but it just had a very natural, graceful walk. Um, That's all I could really say. Seriously, I mean, it was just, it was, it was humorous because it was so, so just laid back and just, I'm just a dog out on a walk. So yeah, it was just, it's just how it walked.
It's really hard to describe how
Yeah.
something was moving like that. I think he did a good job describing it, but it's not easy to do at all, not by a long shot. It looks like Black Sheep wants to know how many experiences you've had.
Oh, geez. Okay. So in 2005, I saw my first, stratospheric, mystery light, at 12 o'clock midnight, and then the next night I saw one again. Then I could not stop seeing them. Hundreds of UFO sightings, no encounters. Don't need that. But hundreds. I mean, it was unreal. And then the orbs. I mean, 5 years, of watching those on a nightly basis. And this is all at the same time too. It's like I'm watching, the stars. I'm watching the fields. You know, there was one night in particular that was very strange that I remember. So across the street there was a pond, and I mean, we're talking Colorado, like in the summer. There's like crickets and this pond had so many frogs in it. It was just like noisy, 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 noisy. So I walked outside one night, and it was completely quiet, not a sound at all, and it was eerie. And I was like, "Whoa, I don't like this. What's going on?" And then across the street, to the north of me was this bush, and it started shaking. And there was like something behind the bush shaking the bush. And I was like, "Nope." I just walked back in. But I was like, "What?" I was like, "That was bizarre. I've never heard that since." And I've heard people talk about that. And it's very uncomfortable. When you're not hearing, the nighttime creatures doing their, little thing. Very uncomfortable. It's like something's wrong, and yep. Left it at that and went inside. Best thing to do, especially with
Can't say
that
I
bush
blame
shaking.
I can't say I blame you. It looks like Candy Wolf wants to know if one has ever spoken with you.
No, I've never got anything like that. Um, the only thing that I could, pick up, as far as just the non-threatening behavior, the docile, very, it's like just just non-threatening. all of all of everything that I've had, it's just more of like an observation, than anything. Um, and yeah, no thing's ever spoken to me, and I don't want them to.
Yeah, I can't say I'll blame you there. This next question, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, and I'm pretty sure you're not going to want to answer it, but it looks like Kurt Schlichting wants to know, where did he say this place was? Name?
No, it's Colorado. It's in Colorado. I mean, all those experiences were Colorado. It's northern Colorado, but I'll just leave it at that. I mean, if you listen to what I said prior, you can definitely, if anybody is from that area, then they know exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly. But I just don't want to go into any into too much detail as far as where it is, because it's like it's a hotbed, for UFO activity. There's allegedly a base back there. Never saw that. Yeah, I don't think I have. But yeah. It's like I keep stopping and it's like yeah, because it's like my mind, there's like all this stuff just like flowing through my brain right now. As far as like what I've seen and just kind of like reliving some of it, and it's yeah. makes you feel like 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 you are just like, because you're always questioning. It's like questioning yourself. It's like it can be such a just a problem, because then you really do like throw yourself into like some kind of psychosis. I'm like absolutely insane. But I did have several friends that would be with me for a lot of this stuff, and so that helps with knowing that it's not in my brain per se. It's like, yes, this is happening because I have it's just I've got other eyewitnesses to it. But it was just the weirdest stuff, like what's going to be next.
I don't blame you. It really does make you wonder that. And you've got every right to wonder that as well. I've got another question for you from Unreal Estate Agent 770. They want to know, do you know of the history of the area as far as if old battlefields are there or graveyards? Someone else, I can't remember who, but they were wondering about Native American burial grounds.
Okay, I do. There's no battlefields. There is an old graveyard. So Goat Hill is it's a hogback hill that is north of me, probably about a mile or something like that. And then between it and me, there was an very old cemetery that was rumored to be extremely haunted. So yes, there was a cemetery in the area. Very small one though, but I never went. It's like I did stop one night and I ventured to like the edge of the fence to like peek in and just kind of like check it out. But I got a creepy feeling from that place, very creepy feeling. So I never went in. But yeah, there is a cemetery. There's as far as Native American, not that I know of. It's Colorado. So you're talking frontier. And I'd never heard of any battles, as far as anything like that. But yeah, definitely cemetery in the area.
Huh. That might add to it.
It could.
Yeah, it just might. Caleb Gates wants to know, did you feel it penetrate you in your mind? They say it can do that, especially the canine type dogmen.
No. I mean, I sat there and, it was looking at me, I was looking at it. And then it just, it turned and walked off. Although there was one night, and I just remembered this, same bridge, I'm a creature of habit. And this one made me run though, because like I said, it's on a tree line. So it was in, it was in the shadows where this little bridge was, but it was like on the road, so you could look up, see the stars, but trees on both sides. So I'm sitting there and I start hearing, and we're talking pitch black back in the trees. You know how it is. And I hear something on 2 feet walking in my general direction, like through the rubbish and the leaves and everything. And I'm like, oh, nope, being back to the house, tuck tail and run, because that was not that was not anything that I would want to run into. No, I knew that one would not be good. There's nothing that's going to be, there's nobody that's going to be walking back in these trees at that time of night, without a flashlight, just and stomping through, the brush, not even on a trail, just right out in the middle of everything, all the bushes and no, So I don't know what that was. Not yet.
You never know. Might have been a jackalope back there.
Well,
It's possible. You never know. It's hard to say. Looks like Space Jerk 35 wants to know, hey, Vic, hi, Harlan. Harlan, did you ever find any footprints? Thanks.
No. Nope. No, nothing. Nope. No footprints. Nothing like that.
Yeah, with it being on the road like that, I didn't think you would have found any. It looks like Scott Baker wants to know, what was its stride measurement?
Oh, let's see here. Okay, so the animal was probably about 6 foot long. Let's see here, about probably about 5 foot long, and then about 4.5 for the height. Stride would have been, let's see here, 20, like what? Probably about 24 inches, I think. Well, let's see here. No, probably 20. I'd say about 20 inches. I mean, if it was, for the legs, it had some long legs on it. So however that would, factor in, but, I didn't have a yardstick at the time, so I didn't really sit down and figure it out, but, it's, it didn't walk lanky, like so I don't know. I'd really have to, say, no, I don't know.
Well, you can't be faulted for that. I mean, everything that was going through your head, all these times that you saw it, yeah, I'm sure trying to figure out what its stride length was really far down on the list. So
Yes.
It's a good question, but I don't blame you
Absolutely.
for not knowing. I really don't. I'm going to ask you one more question. This is a good question from Lowman 101. He wants to know, do you know if the location was near any tribal land? Northern Colorado is traditional Sugandese tribe territory.
That, I will have to, claim ignorance on that because it's far. I don't. I grew up in the area. It's like this was only like 12 miles, I think, from where I literally grew up. So the Namaqua Indian were prevalent in the area. Pre-white. That's the only tribe that I know of. It was the Namaqua. But I don't know. It's a very good question. It's like, I'd actually want to like sit down and, check this out now and, and see, but, it's very possible, very possible. It's like, this, I don't know who was there before us, but, it's a very good question. I want to check it out.
Yeah, that is a really good question. That just might be the question of the night. It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Harlan. But before we do you have any closing comments you want to put out there for us?
Expect the unexpected. All I can say, and keep your mind open, and just, sit there, and be alert. But, don't live in fear, or be fearful, of things that, you really don't know too much of. But no, it's, just, live your life. If you see something, just go on from it. Don't sit and, ruminate about it.
That's always good advice. Easier said than done, but that is always good advice. But having said that, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing the details of all these experiences with us. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Vic, for having this forum, and thank you, everyone, for asking the questions. And this was fun. I enjoyed it very much, and I'm happy that I could, finally, tell my secret, as far as stuff out there. So, but yeah, it's like just pay attention to the sky. Wise men always look at the sky. So that's all I can say is just people look up. just check it out. Check out the stars for once, if you can. If you're in an area where you can, it's beautiful.
Yeah, if you do that, you'll be surprised with what you see, quite possibly.
Correct.
Well, like I said, thanks again so much for your time, Harlan, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll see ya. All right, that's a wrap for another one in the books. In case you didn't know it, I've got a new Dogman podcast out now called Dogman Tales. I released an episode tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Dogman Tales. It's titled The Beast of Blackwood Forest. So if you haven't checked it out, highly recommend you do. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own that you'd like to speak with me about because you either need help or maybe you want to come on the show and share it with the listeners, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. If you submit a report, I'll just contact you, schedule a phone consultation, and we'll take it from there. But having said that, thanks as always so much for listening, everyone. I really appreciate you doing that, and have a great night.